Donald Trump is on his way to Singapore to prepare for his meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un.
The historic on-again, off-again meeting will take place on Tuesday. Our correspondent Zoe Daniel joins us now from Singapore. Zoe, a very early good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Now, before we talk about the preparations for the meeting, I just wanted to talk about the latest comments from Donald Trump. Now, he said essentially he can sum up anyone within the first minute. So this is going to be interesting to see how he sums up Kim Jong Un when they first meet.
Indeed, Andrew, it's just the vibe. And I think Donald Trump pretty much said that when he was asked just before he got on Air Force One to head from Canada to Singapore, when he was asked just when he'll be able to tell whether Kim Jong Un is serious about denuclearisation. And he said, well, probably in the first minute. And the reporter said, how? And he said, well, that's just what I do, basically. So Donald Trump left that particularly fraught G7 meeting a little earlier even than expected. He will be landing here in Singapore tonight, just one fuel stop on the way, so as quick a possible trip over for the US president. And Kim Jong Un, as we understand it, will also arrive this evening ahead of this very important meeting. Donald Trump has tweeted from the aircraft, "I'm on my way to Singapore, where we have a chance to achieve a truly wonderful result for North Korea and the world. It will certainly be an exciting day, and I know that Kim Jong Un will work very hard to do something that's rarely been done before, to create peace and prosperity for his land. I look forward to meeting him, and I have a feeling that this one-time opportunity will not be wasted." And that's the second time that Donald Trump has used that phrase, one time, Andrew, although he's said repeatedly in the last couple of weeks, trying to temper expectations from this meeting, that there will be likely several meetings required to cut a deal. I think what Donald Trump's saying very clearly is that Kim Jong Un has to come to the table in the sense of appearing to be genuine about these negotiations. Let's take a look at what the president had to say just before he took off.
How long will it take to figure out whether or not they're serious? I said, maybe in the first minute. You know, the way they say that you know if you're going to like somebody in the first 5 seconds. You ever hear that one? Well, I think that very quickly I'll know whether or not something good is going to happen.
Zoe, how will success of this meeting be measured, do you think, given what America and Donald Trump in particular wants from the North Koreans and vice versa?
Well, yes, initially Donald Trump talked it up so much that it appeared, Andrew, that he thought that a deal for denuclearisation could be achieved through one meeting between these two leaders, which from everyone's perspective seems to be a stretch. He's now saying that it's likely to take several meetings to achieve that. It's been billed more recently as a meet and greet. But again, that sense of genuine negotiation, that sense of rapport, I think is what Donald Trump is looking for, and he alluded to that in that same press conference last night. There are several things on the table. The key for the US and the world, obviously, is comprehensible, verifiable, complete, irreversible denuclearisation. And to achieve that, North Korea will have to dismantle its existing programs and allow a full inspection regime to take place to make sure that it is not persisting with the building of nuclear weapons. But North Korea also will be very focused on ending the Korean War, the potential for a treaty to end that war on the Korean Peninsula that the US will need to be party to. And this goes to some of the bigger picture issues, Andrew, that observers are concerned about. For example, would peace in that region lead to pressure from not only North Korea but also the South Korean public and the US public to move US troops out of the region, to move US nuclear capacity out of the region, thereby, if North Korea is not genuine in the longer run, leaving both South Korea and Japan wide open. And this particularly goes to the history of North Korea, which, as you'd be aware, has made deals in the past, or partial deals with other administrations, the Clinton presidency particularly, and has then been seen to be cheating on what it committed to, and the deal has then subsequently fallen over.
Now, Zoe, I know you haven't been on the ground there for long in Singapore, but how would you describe the arrangements in place for this historic meeting? And also the size of the media contingent, for instance.
Yeah, somewhat chaotic and last minute, I think, is probably the best description. And obviously, you know, this is no easy thing that Donald Trump has pulled off here. You have to give him credit for the fact that he's seemingly, it's still to happen, but is going to be able to bring the North Korean leader to the table. But of course, this summit has been on again, off again. So both from the organisation of the actual meeting itself and also the logistics around several thousand media descending on Singapore for the summit, things have been a little chaotic. And, you know, we've been told, for example, to treat this more as a breaking news event rather than the kind of planned summit that you might go to in other contexts where you would expect planned briefings, for example, and you would understand or have a sense of how things will unfold. There's very little concept of what will happen other than the fact that we know that Donald Trump will arrive tonight. We believe that Kim Jong Un will arrive tonight, probably on a commercial flight from North Korea, because it's believed that his own jet does not have the capacity to fly that distance. And we believe that both leaders will have bilateral meetings with the Singaporeans tomorrow ahead of the summit that will get underway on Tuesday at 9 a.m, currently set for one day. But the Americans have left the way open for it to be extended if the pair hit it off and want to talk further, or if there's a need to do that.
It's going to be interesting to see how Donald Trump in particular relays what's going on in the meeting, because of course, as you know, Zoe, with most summits there's a communique that's released at the end of talks, but as Donald Trump is wont to do, he's more likely to use Twitter, isn't he?
Yes, and I think we can fully expect that Twitter will be in heavy use over the next several days, Andrew. And from my perspective, perhaps that's not a bad thing, because that at least is a way of getting direct information from the president himself. Beyond that, we will have to wait until late Tuesday, and I expect it will be late Tuesday in part due to the time zone difference, in that late Tuesday here, say 7 p.m, will be 7 a.m. on the US East Coast. So Americans will be waking up wanting to know exactly what Donald Trump has achieved that morning.